At the Fourth Academy of Sioux City, a platform stood amidst a crowd of students, positioned upon a mystical circle. Principal Shui Jinlong, standing on a podium, addressed the gathering with solemnity. On this significant day, he declared that they were about to embark on a journey into the inner world. As they stood within the enchanted arrangement, the system would unveil their designated class roles and abilities. Whether destined to be a skilled swordsman, a reliable knight, a stealthy assassin adept in the shadows, or a powerful magician, each student's fate hung on the whims of chance. In total, there were 4 primary courses awaiting them. Principal explained everything and wished the kids good luck because this test could shape their future. Then, he turned on the transfer thingy, and a bright blue light popped up from the magic circle the students were on. Qiao Yu was right there in the middle of that magic circle. Qiao Yu was just a regular student until he came back to Earth 18 years ago. Finally, the day he was waiting for had come. After he died, he ended up in a parallel universe called Kaiji Star, which was surprisingly similar to our world. But out of the blue, it crashed down to Earth, causing chaos. First, dungeons filled with monsters appeared, which was tough for normal people. Luckily, when people turned 18, they got superpowers through a transfer thingy to tackle these dungeons. The monsters in the dungeons leveled up by gaining experience, spending attribute 11 points like their own currency. Now, back to our hero. As soon as he activated the magic circle, he fell into another dimension. Then, a system voice told him to check his class. Without hesitation, he said, yes. His future was uncertain, so he hoped for a good grade. Inside, he was pretty scared. What a nerve-wracking moment. Once the loading process is complete, above the turquoise aura, a fiery skull with burning eyes and a gaping mouth materialized. The aura engulfed him like a raging inferno. Shortly after, the system acknowledged his achievement of acquiring the Indeed, the necromancer class was so uncommon that it could only be attained by a handful of individuals on Earth. With a single swing of his staff, this class's immense strength enabled him to call an army of first-class undead from the depths of hell. An army that he could command with an abundance of mana. He opted to check his attributes frundrum. The system contacted you when you were on your knees, sobbing in sorrow, and asked whether you would take the job based on your talent. Even if he were to obtain an S-level talent, the best it would be meaningless to him due to his poor spirit. So, you, who had already accepted his destiny as a failure, responded that he did. The following second, the talent hunt got underway. He was congratulated by the system and informed that he had gained a skill called Brave Heart of a Magician, which granted 10 points of characteristics. After a while, a blue aura resurfaced around him. There were 2 effects mentioned in the description. One was a specific attribute. Regrettably, due to the strength of the skill, the active skepticism, our protagonist's eyes widened in amazement as he delved into the narrative. The concept of acquiring free attribute points seemed almost implausible. Traditionally, one had to either level up or engage in rigorous practice to earn such rewards. Thus, his astonishment was justified. On the flip side, employing this passive skill could enable him to garner tribute points, essential for merely engaging in physical combat and defeating adversaries. Moreover, he discovered the potential to level up his other attributes to match the highest one, allowing the activation of his active attribute. This strategic move could establish him as an unstoppable force among newcomers, ensuring a lasting impact on history if he decided to swiftly raise all attributes to level 10. However, he recognized the imprudence of such a hasty decision in the long run. Patience might yield incredible outcomes, especially if he waited until his strength reached 1,000 could pose a severe threat, capable of single-handedly confronting entire armies. Attribute points. Without hesitation, he clenched his fist, signaling the system to grant him 10 strength attribute points. Checking his system status panel, he noted that his strength had now reached 20 points. Having completed this task, he realized the next step was to register and undergo the beginner's test, a prerequisite for official success. In an instant, our hero vanished into a teleportation vortex bridge leading to a gateway where a young elf named Elaine awaited. She welcomed him as his guide and offered assistance. After the introduction, slightly taken aback by the girl's allure and questioning her status as a non-playable character, he informed her of his intention to sign up and take on the beginner's assignment. She expressed her willingness to assist, and presented him with a gift box, describing it as an introductory present. Upon opening it, he found a staff, a book, and a cape. Simultaneously, a system message congratulated him on acquiring the ancient robe, staff, and grimoire through the use of the F-level skeleton summoning talent. Upon scrutinizing the items that had fallen to him, he quickly discerned that the robe held little significance as a mere accessory, and the summoning skill proved futile due to his 0 spirit level. However, the staff stood out as a valuable asset. Sturdy in appearance, and complemented by his 20 points of strength, it promised to be an effective crushing weapon. Inquiring about his beginner task, he turned to the girl who pointed towards the Misty Cave entrance. Her instruction was clear. He needed to navigate the Misty Cave cautiously, avoiding killing the skeletons, and find the quickest route to escape. She began explaining the consequences of failure, but abruptly turned around in shock and confusion, realizing that no one was behind her. Simultaneously, our hero eagerly emerged from the portal. Confirming his guide's description, he entered the mist-laden cave, where human remains littered the floor, and specifics of the girl's instructions, he reassured himself that it couldn't be challenging for a beginner. Suddenly, a level 1 skeleton soldier materialized from behind, brandishing a dagger and lunging at him. Swiftly turning around, he prepared for battle without hesitation. The attacker, with 20 health and 5 strength, stood no chance. Consulting the system window for details, our hero wasted no time in seizing his staff and charging at the skeleton. A swift strike reduced the skeleton's health to 20 in an instant, leaving only its decaying cranium behind. Surprised by his ability to dispatch the foe with a single stroke, he made a sardonic comment about the challenges of being unable to use magic. Almost instantly, a congratulatory message from the system arrived, acknowledging his physical defeat of the skeleton and awarding him 1 attribute point and 3 experience points. Furthermore, upon successfully defeating a monster with a single strike for the first time, he was also bestowed with another passive A-ranked talent known as Miracle of Might. The points the user had put in their strength were doubled by the skill. His ability to acquire a highly proficient skill came as a pleasant surprise to you. He deduced that strength dictated the amount of damage he dealt, and defense influenced the amount of damage reduced. By glancing at his status window, where an icon representing his strength attributes doubling had recently appeared, this meant that incredibly, he could now do 42 points of damage with a single hit, provided that his opponent had no defense. In the subsequent instant, nevertheless, our champion was cut off by a sound emanating from the multitude of skeletal hands emerging from the earth, all of which belonged to the same skeletons. He resolved to give his whole attention to his work, since he knew it was crucial. Suddenly, a swarm of obviously hostile skeleton warriors broke out of the earth and charged towards him. He remained icy and patient, even as he stood in front of the lethal blades that were about to stab him. In the very next second, it was here, he was able to deal 20 damage to each of the 4 skeletons he struck with a single swing of his staff, killing them instantly. The heads went down to the ground, their green flames still blazing, and our hero got a notification that he had killed 4 skeleton warriors with a physical assault, which gave him 4 attribute points and 12 experience. Indeed, he leveled up with the help of these experience points, and he was rewarded with 5 attribute points for the achievement. When he added these to the ones he got from slaying skeletons, his strength level reached an incredible 30 points. This was particularly surprising, given that a beginner would typically be regarded as brilliant if they received 10 points in any of the qualities. But you were still on the fence regarding whether or not slaying skeletons to farm levels was too simple for newcomers. Nevertheless, the skeleton that materialized from the earth wasn't your average one. It seemed to read his thoughts. This time, there was a gigantic skeleton wielding a spear and a shield. It was a 3rd-level skeleton captain with 50 HP, 15 strength, and 20 defense. Nevertheless, like the previous skeletons, its agility was still its strongest suit. Yo saw the opponent's power and knew he would take a beating if you hit him. He pulled out his staff and decided it didn't matter because he still had 1 dexterity point, giving him the advantage if he hit first. He then lunged for the skeleton, who easily parried the blow with his shield. Our hero deftly evaded his spear as he launched a counterattack. The very next second, the skeleton's actions caught Yu off guard, since he never expected to launch a swift reaction. Luckily, our hero seized an opportunity to launch an effective attack just as the skeleton was preparing to launch another hit. He hit his opponent, waiting for him to pause before striking again. The punch didn't hurt him, but it opened the door for his next move. He proceeded to spring into midair, and he was commanded to attempt to block it with an ecstatic scream. As soon as his fist hit the skeleton's skull, it lost 50 health points and died. You noticed that this opponent was very formidable. After receiving a notification from the system that he had vanquished the skeleton captain and earned 3 attribute points and 10 experience as a result, because of this, he began to question how the other people handled the situation. But for now, the most crucial thing was the yellow light sphere that fell from the sky following the killing of the skeleton captain. He had a clue since the headmaster had informed them that they could win a random prize if they were lucky enough to have a core fall out of the monster after they defeated it. Upon opening it, he discovered a D-rank skeletal fist that, when used, granted him a 100% critical strike. Yu expressed satisfaction with it, noting that it could have been even better if the item were permanent. Unfortunately, the relentless onslaught of skeletons left Yu with little time to recuperate as they emerged from the ground, catching him off guard. To his surprise, the number of skeleton soldiers had multiplied, encircling Yu and launching attacks from all angles. Despite Yu reaching level 2, Yu swiftly maneuvered, efficiently dispatching the skeleton soldiers in a single blow. This accomplishment led to another level up, gaining 30 experience points. With a total of 20 out of 30 experience points, Yu also earned 10 attribute points. He thought it was easy after finishing the skeletons because, thankfully, they only required a single dexterity point. But at this point, it was irrelevant, as he needed to check the status window after leveling up again. Outside the school, the students who had passed the beginner's test were enjoying themselves, talking about the classes they had gotten. All the while, the protagonist was fighting monsters in the cave. Amidst the jubilant celebration, a sense of curiosity lingered among some students regarding the principal's delayed graduation announcement and the possibility of anyone failing so swiftly. The formidable skeletons within the cave posed a powerful threat, yet their sluggish pace allowed for a relatively easy escape. Some students scoffed at the notion of anyone faltering in such a seemingly simple task. One student, however, stood apart from the laughter, anxiously awaiting news. Concerns about the well-being of a friend or the absence of Yu heightened the tension. Within the cavern's center, the same student contemplated whether all the skeletons had been vanquished and why the mission completion notification was yet to arrive. Suddenly, an icy voice shattered the silence, demanding an explanation. Faced with such a chilling tone, our hero naturally became vigilant. In the blink of an eye, skeletal remains ascended from the floor to the ceiling as if guided by an invisible force. Converging at a single point, they formed an assembly, seemingly oblivious to the bewildered and slightly frightened protagonist. A few seconds later, the creature's head ignited in a vibrant green blaze. Subsequently, our hero encountered a formidable adversary, larger and armed with 4 distinct weapons. A thunderous roar emanated from the primary head, revealing the skeletal figure as a level 10 skeleton king. While his agility was merely a point, like his underlings, his imposing presence commanded respect. The skeleton monarch possessed additional abilities, leaving Yu perplexed and bewildered about how to overcome this boss in a beginner's task. Unfortunately, time didn't permit contemplation. With a swift draw of his massive sword, the skeleton monarch charged at him. Despite the boss's lethal force, our hero skillfully evaded its attack, narrowly escaping potential instant demise. Although the opponent wielded significant power, Xiao Yu streaked past his opponent, striking with his staff and inflicting 32 damage. Despite the initial effectiveness, he realized that the damage output fell short of his expectations. Undeterred, he devised a strategy to defeat the Skeleton King, a relentless assault with more than 10 consecutive strikes. Capitalizing on his agility, he launched a series of rapid blows, each dealing 32 damage. The unexpected onslaught overwhelmed the boss, causing the Skeleton King to crumble to the ground. Dust billowed from his body, creating a momentary commotion as the boss felt helpless. As the hero questioned the authenticity of the boss's intimidation tactics, only 200 HP remained for the boss to reform his skeletal structure. The end of the battle seemed imminent, but the boss surprised Xiao Yu with a resilient resurgence. The enraged boss erupted in verdant flames, expressing frustration at the rare occurrence of a player successfully navigating the mist cave. Blaming the loss of his skeletal troops for the current predicament, the boss vowed not to let Xiao Yu escape unscathed. breaking through the boss's formidable defense revealed a stronger and faster skeleton monster. With an unusual burst of speed, the boss charged straight at Qiao Yu, instilling terror in the hero. Despite the increased threat, Qiao Yu skillfully evaded the imminent fatal blow, maintaining a secure distance. As they leaped, he realized the need to restrict the boss's movement. Observing a delicate stone pillar, the solution became apparent. Utilizing the pillar, Qiao Yu inflicted damage on the skeleton and constrained its mobility by luring it closer. Closing in for another strike, the enraged boss, oblivious to the impending danger, launched another assault without hesitation. "Come at me, you can't blockade." Qiao Yu mocked him even more. Outraged by the insult, he charged at the man with a yell, planning to inflict his complete might on him. Even though he evaded it in the past, Qiao Yu's success rate was lower this time around. The skeleton strike, seemingly insignificant, inflicted 26 damage and sent him reeling as the assault's central focus fell on the stone. Even though he was in excruciating pain, our hero refused to accept that a little cut had lowered his life status to a pitiful 4 points out of 30. The enraged skeleton decided to end it all by attacking the wounded Qiao Yu. Visibly terrified, Qiao Yu prepared for the worst. However, the skeleton had to change its plans when it heard the sound of falling stones, indicating that the strategy was working. The final blow caused a crumbling stone column to nearly fall on the skeleton boss. They threw rocks at him because he wasn't far enough away, potentially causing 70 points of damage. With only 129 health points left out of 500, the injured Skeleton King was in a dire situation. Qiao Yu knew he had to act quickly before the skeleton recovered, realizing he couldn't hold on much longer. He decided to deliver a fatal blow by leaping beyond the boss and using a skeletal boxing glove for an enhanced strike. Despite being a one-time use item, it guaranteed a critical hit, and Qiao Yu aimed to make the most of this opportunity. This determined young adventurer was about to conclude his lengthy stay in the cave, a fact the skeleton boss found unbelievable. Qiao Yu's powerful blow to the skull extinguished the skeleton's life, leaving only the ash of its eerie green light among the rocks. Almost instantly, a blue gateway and information screens appeared, congratulating him on successfully completing the beginner's mission, Escape from the Cave of Mist. In addition to this accomplishment, Qiao Yu was praised for being the first to defeat the Skeleton King, the boss of the Cave of Mist. He received 30 bonus attribute points for his achievement. Glowing remains of the skeleton's fires formed a core behind him, and numerous information windows materialized, acknowledging his 10 extra attribute points and 50 experience points gained from vanquishing the skeleton boss in melee battle. Our hero had reached level 5, thanks to the 2 levels he earned along the way. Qiao Yu approached the center and extended his hand to unlock it. Not only did he manage to defeat the monster first, but he also managed to collect the equipment that the boss dropped. He still couldn't believe his luck and fortune. The Skeleton King's ring was the prize for being the first to defeat the boss. Importantly, there were no roll constraints on this sank item, which doubled the player's damage after the first assault and had a 24-hour recharge effect. The main character thought this ring was very cool. Although this ring lacked the durability of the skeleton boxing glove, its versatility made up for it. Whatever the situation may be, he could always sell the ring and pocket the several hundred it would be worth because of his elevated status. He looked at the notices once he had admired the valuable item he had received. At last, he couldn't believe he had killed the boss before everyone else in the game. Is it possible that nobody has murdered the Skeleton King up until now? He pondered. In that case, how did the other pupils manage to get a passing score? But he didn't. Therefore, he became an extremely powerful player during the first beginner's challenge, reaching muscle crates, miracles, and equipment like the Ring of the Skeleton King. He was also able to acquire the talent. The portal shut behind him as he departed, making him the last student to finish the task. He was pushed aside and yelled at in indignation as his friend, Yang Xiangdi's exuberant embrace nearly knocked him down the moment he arrived. Nonetheless, the man was pleased to see him and continued to follow him. He wanted to know why he had taken so long to finish the beginner's work and what had happened to him. This caused him to begin to fear that he had perished there and his anxiety levels to rise. However, Qiao Yu initially failed to believe both his words and the rapid completion of the mission by all the pupils before they exited the portal. According to Yang Xiangdi, the last individual to emerge from the building was 3 hours ago. Zhao was taken aback by their rapidity, but he persisted in inquiring about his friend's part. Shifting the conversation focus, he adjusted his cloak in anticipation of the question. Then, boastfully, he declared his transformation into a magician and questioned in a playful way whether he was familiar with the job. The protagonist, bewildered by his heightened state of mind, couldn't believe they were in the same courtroom. His companion appeared to be enjoying a leisurely outing. The chat was cut short when an arrogant man who had come to mock Qiao Yu's late arrival suddenly entered. Ma Fei was more than just a regular student. He was also the class monitor. He looked down on the hero with an air of superiority and declared that the hero is nothing more than an embroidered cushion. In the alternate realm, proficiency takes precedence over charm, making his attractiveness inconsequential in advancing there. His quest for role clarity concluded with Qiao Yu observing Ma Fei's penchant for engaging in arguments. Despite the abrasive comments, Qiao Yu chose to dismiss them to avert trouble momentarily. Upon verifying that every student had successfully passed the exam, the principal announced their acceptance into the alternate world. Encouraging words were followed by a cautionary note about novice training the next day. Each student was invited to introduce themselves, revealing their positions and special skills. The ensuing showcases evoked a mix of joy and disappointment from the audience. Military, assassination, and grievances over low-ranking assignments followed. Zhao, a girl, emerged as a popular healer and magician, earning the endearing nickname Nanny. Her fan club embraced the title, mindful of her healing role. Another student, Anan, assumed the role of a paladin, despite her delicate appearance, showcasing remarkable defensive capabilities. Amidst the presentations, Ma Fei, known for his sarcasm, took the stage as a swordsman with AB-ranked talent, excelling in every skill. His unexpected prowess surprised the onlookers, as a swordsman held significant importance in the alternate reality. The class monitor reportedly received divine blessings, further adding to the unfolding dynamics. The principal took one look at the class and concluded, "This isn't bad after all." There were a lot of talented, bright kids in there, some of whom might even be geniuses. At long last, Qiao Yu took center stage and proudly declared to everyone that he had been cast as a necromancer. Encircled by an aura of black flames, suddenly, though, his self-assurance crumbled as he had to explain that he couldn't show his talent to everyone because doing so would be inconvenient for him. Just now, his secret gift should remain hidden from the world, he thought to himself. Apathy was the prevailing sentiment as the news unfolded. Surprisingly, the principal expressed elation upon learning that one of his pupils had secured a rare concealed position, leaving both him and the other students astonished. Among the students, a recollection of a necromancer who single-handedly dismantled an earlier alliance added an unexpected layer of tension. Ma Fei, visibly perturbed, struggled to fathom the plausibility of this revelation. Despite the covert nature of the role, he grappled with acknowledging its potential drawbacks, particularly the vulnerability associated with mages. Necromancers, inherently more fragile due to their prolonged interactions with the dead in dungeons, faced the added challenge of lengthy summoning spells and the difficulty of solo combat. Their reliance on allies with an emphasis on assault, such as assassins and swordsmen, further heightened the complexity of their role. When Ma Fei curiously looked over his shoulder, Qiao Yu chose not to disclose his status or talents, leaving Ma Fei smirking with assumed certainty. Despite Qiao Yu's classmates refraining from jealousy, they were captivated by his composed demeanor and understated approach, attributing it to what set him apart. The grounded nature of his personality led many to believe that they, in a similar situation, would struggle to maintain such composure. Unbeknownst to them, the true motivations and unsettling thoughts occupying Qiao Yu's mind remained obscure. Speculating about the upcoming events, Qiao Yu pondered the challenges of being a necromancer with minimal magical abilities during beginner training. The uncertainty of his ability to summon zombies became a source of concern when faced with the prospect of his fellow students discovering his limitations. Upon concluding the starter training, the headmaster all to head home. Qiao Yu started heading home, but his friend Yang Xiangdi hurried to catch up with him. Yang began raving about the story's wonderful protagonist. Feeling disappointed about not being cast as a powerful necromancer, Yang wondered if he was truly that incompetent, especially with his decent spirit score. After bragging about his attributes, Yang demanded to know Qiao Yu's secret talent, convinced it must be awful. Qiao Yu reflected that hard work can make up for awkwardness, as he recalled his embarrassing 0 spirit score. Though his friends' scores were higher, Qiao Yu knew he was on a much lower level. Ultimately, things were not as bad as he had feared. Qiao Yu returned to an empty house and called out, "I'm home," as if someone would respond. His parents had fled long ago, leaving him the place they once owned, so he would always announce his arrival, hoping someday someone would finally reply. His parents had made this house feel like home whenever they returned. He aspired to welcome others so warmly, too. Now all he had was a photo of them both, and memories from his blissful early years. He recalled their kindness and generosity, and the happy childhood they gave him. But when he was 6, they suddenly announced they had to leave for the capital to resolve urgent affairs, a reason he never grasped. After that, Qiao Yu was alone, his parents mysteriously vanishing. Now, gazing at the photo, he realized 12 years had passed since they left without a trace. Little city to uncover the truth about their disappearance. Our hero and the other pupils showed up. Principal stood before them and made his presence known. He pleaded with them in a somber tone, reminding them to go back right away if they unexpectedly realized they couldn't make it. Failure in training would still be preferable to death, after all. The pupils' hearts sank at the sound of this. The headmaster, however, put their fears to rest by assuring them that they need not worry. After all, the beginner's world is usually not a dangerous place to be, and player deaths are infrequent. The world, however, is not without its outliers. Yes, it is correct. A terrible event occurred not long ago when a single beginner's world annihilated a class of 40, and nobody saw them again. Nobody has any idea what that awful beginner's world was like. Nightmare Village is the only name we have for it. Additionally, it was populated by both ordinary and enormous Titan-like undead. The students were terrified and bewildered upon hearing this. They lost all faith in themselves and their talents again, announcing that they need not be so serious. The principal proceeded to toy with their emotions. There is no threat to their safety if they depart the alternate dimension promptly. At last, he told them to be prepared, for the other world will be accessible as soon as the stopwatch hits 0. The 10 seconds passed in the blink of an eye as the countdown started. The stopwatch made a deafening beep sound. The headmaster then made the announcement that the first day of introductory classes had started. As ominous electrical currents enveloped each and every one of the pupils, a sudden bolt of black lightning whisked the entire class away to a different dimension, where they were to complete the exam. As they looked around, the students began to regain consciousness and attempt to determine their location. It appeared as though the community was as dull and unremarkable as they come. Ma Fei started to smugly tell all the kids that he would win the battle and keep everyone safe. As Qiao Yu kept looking about, the pupils nevertheless felt a creepy, crawly sense of foreboding and uneasiness. Even though the world around them appeared to be serene and tranquil as in a tomb, the village was dead silent. Plus, it wasn't in vain. The gruesome Nightmare Village sign wasn't there for aesthetic purposes. There were a lot of lifeless blue feet hiding in the house shadows. It appeared more like a nightmarish carnage than a beginner's class. Ma Fei calmed all of them down, telling them that he will definitely protect all. But in one corner of the village, there was a signboard hanging from the ceiling with something written on it. As we zoom in, the letters were written from dried blood, and that place was none other than the Nightmare Village itself. It was the one place that you and others should not have gotten into. And there was someone standing in the shadows with blue legs, most probably waiting for its next prey.